TikTok is getting banned in the US. TikTok has probably just become the first app ever to be banned by both Chinese and America. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Last Friday, the US Supreme Court held an oral argument hearing, and during the hearing, the justices asked tough questions regarding whether TikTok should be banned in US or not. Based on what they've asked, the court is likely to uphold the law, which means that TikTok will effectively be banned from operating in the US unless its parent ByteDance agrees to sell TikTok by January 19th. But this is probably not going to happen because we know that ByteDance has already said previously that a sale isn't going to happen. So even though TikTok hasn't been banned officially, the aftermath is already happening. Just tonight, when I checked my phone, I came across some very interesting things. A bunch of the so-called TikTok refugees are flocking over to Xiaohongshu. This is another Chinese social media platform that is very similar to Pinterest or Instagram. It is also known as the Little Red Note. This app is very popular in China, but it is mostly used by the Chinese-speaking community. I saw a lot of American creators posting things like, "Happy to meet you guys. I am migrating to Little Red Note because of the TikTok ban." The app itself is also quickly climbing the charts in the US App Store.
The most dramatic first impression that I'm getting from this app is that your cooking videos are amazing. In America, the cooking stuff that trends is usually a nightmare. But oh my God, I'm going to be doing the stuff I'm seeing here.
This is a very ironic turn of events, as we all know that things like Google, Facebook, and Instagrams are all banned in China, but millions of Chinese people use VPNs to access them anyways. The same thing could happen with TikTok users. TikTok has probably just become the first app ever to be banned by both Chinese and America. The world now needs to hear the other side of the story on the other side of the firewall. But TikTok isn't just any social media platform. It now has over 170 million users, and that's half of the entire US population. Over 60% of those are Gen Z users. So why did TikTok need to be banned anyways? You'll get some clues from the Supreme Court oral arguments that took place last Friday. Because I know you haven't got the chance to listen to the whole thing, I am going to highlight 3 repeated keywords and themes from the 2.5-hour argument marathon for you. So let's break it down. So first up, it is about the freedom of speech. TikTok's lawyer argued fiercely about the First Amendment. They argued that the law discriminates based on the content or the viewpoint, which makes it unconstitutional. Mr. Francisco, who is representing TikTok, even gave a wild hypothetical scenario. So imagine if China used its influence over Jeff Bezos to make the Washington Post say whatever China wanted on its front page. The Supreme Court wouldn't just shut down the Post altogether because it would be a massive First Amendment violation. Instead, he suggests that the risk should be mitigated by giving proper disclosure instead of banning the platform altogether, because Americans have the right to receive foreign information, and with proper risk disclosure, they should be able to judge the information themselves, which is the right that comes with the First Amendment. But the justices' question mainly revolves around the association rather than the freedom of speech. Basically, they're saying it's less about what you say on TikTok, but more about the fact that it is controlled by a Chinese company. For instance, on this topic, Chief Justice Roberts asked, are we supposed to ignore the fact that the ultimate parent is, in fact, subject to doing intelligence work for the Chinese government? So here's a gist of what TikTok lawyers are saying. They said the algorithm isn't just some back-end tech. It is part of the content itself. Think of it as a team of skilled editors curating a newspaper. It is an integral creative force that decides which stories or videos get spotlighted. That's exactly why a lot of the creators flock to TikTok instead of other platforms. For instance, the attorney for TikTok creator Mr. Fisher said that it particularly benefits people like my clients who are not famous people. They're not actors from Hollywood who have a lot of people following them. They're ordinary American citizens whose content that they create on the platform gets privileged by way of the quality of that content. So would TikTok still feel like TikTok if it were cut off from the ByteDance? The lawyers are basically saying no because the magic is tied to ByteDance. TikTok will need to be owned by ByteDance to be able to access that algorithm, which is also part of the content that makes TikTok what it is. And this brings to the second point, which is the algorithm itself brings the risk of covert content manipulation. While TikTok's lawyer basically leaned on the freedom of speech, the US Solicitor General argued that national security takes precedence. She claimed that the Chinese government could manipulate TikTok's content in the covert way to influence American users without them even realizing it. This case is simply not about the freedom of speech to begin with. It was somewhat funny and sarcastic when Justice Kagan asked the Solicitor General to clarify what she meant by covert. She said, if you mean what covert is, in fact, that there's China behind it, I mean, honestly, really, like everybody does know now that there's China behind it. To respond to that, the Solicitor General refers back to the national security rationale. She quotes that China's capability to manipulate the platform at some point is the true national security concern. What the act is doing is attempting to surgically remove the ability of a foreign adversary. Another area of concern mentioned during the hearing is, of course, the data security. By now, the data security should already sound very familiar because it's mentioned a lot during the past years and was one of the first reasons why TikTok ban was proposed in the first place. TikTok lawyers argued that if the law is about data or national security, it misses the mark. Instead of banning TikTok, other least restrictive alternatives should be at least considered before ruling such an unprecedented case, like fines or prison for data breaches. Plus, TikTok's lawyers cited cases of other social media platforms selling user data while continuing to operate in the US. There was a super interesting moment during the hearing when Justice Kagan drew a parallel between TikTok and the situation with the Soviet Union back in the mid-20th century. She basically said, look, if Congress had told the Communist Party USA to completely cut ties with the Comintern, would that have been okay? If it would have been okay, how is this situation with TikTok any different? This is, of course, a hypothetical scenario, but I think it's an interesting one to ponder. The debate here isn't really about the First Amendment or the freedom of speech in the US. What we are witnessing here could be the start of a new era of McCarthyism. If TikTok is owned by other foreign countries other than the adversary, things could have become very different. TikTok isn't exactly pushing a pro-China agenda. In fact, the app itself is banned in China. If it were evidently pro-China, it should work great for the Chinese government, and therefore there would be no reason to ban it in China. TikTok's algorithm amplifies whatever you're already interested in. For instance, if you're searching for Trump, you keep seeing more pro-Trump content coming. So in other words, it reinforces your preferences and beliefs, limiting your exposure to alternative perspectives. The algorithm comes in handy for e-commerce and business owners because that's how commerce works. You sell people stuff they already like, so there's no problem with that. But I think it's a huge issue for political discourse or any discourse that involves important decision-making, which should be based on rationality rather than emotions. But TikTok's algo does exactly the opposite of that. So I don't think it's a problem unique to US. It is a problem for every country. Every country needs to rethink how social media affects public discourse, especially as more young people rely on these platforms to get news. Unlike traditional news outlets like newspaper, which we all know they have biases, TikTok's entertainment-first approach can gradually polarize your perspective without you even realizing it. When people start making important decisions based on emotionally driven content rather than balanced information, things can escalate very quickly. So perhaps one takeaway after this ban is that we should make entertainment platform entertainment only, and that is true for not just US but for every country. If TikTok does get banned, which looks like it is going to happen, I think it might spark changes in other social media platforms too. For instance, creators have been flocking to TikTok to share underrepresented ideas like pro-Palestinian content because TikTok's algorithm really helps to amplify their voices. So even without TikTok, I think the way that people interact and view other major social media platforms will be forever changed. And another angle here is what happens to other Chinese companies if TikTok gets shut down. If this case goes through, it could set the stage for targeting other Chinese companies. During the hearing, Mr. Fisher, who is the attorney for TikTok's content creator, even brought up Temu as an example. He asked, would a Congress that's really worried about these dramatic risks leave out an e-commerce site like Temu that has 70 million Americans using it? I think I mentioned it as a support argument for TikTok's case today, as he believes that the act makes no sense from the data security point of view. But let's say that we are actually heading to a Cold War 2.0 scenario. This case could become a precedent to ban and decouple other Chinese companies, especially in technology and e-commerce sectors. After all, who doesn't have millions of customers' names and addresses stored in their databases and rely on algorithms that function like black boxes? So anyway, that's it for today. Let me know what you think about it. Do you think that TikTok should be banned? Please drop a comment. I do want to send my best wishes to all the TikTok creators that are affected because of this ban. I hope all of you will soon find an alternative platform to share your ideas and story. If you like today's content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. Take care. I will see you in the next video.